Between 1939 and 1945, the Holocaust was a period of organized cruelty where millions of people were treated as less than human. They were forced into hard labor, suffered from terrible diseases, and were killed by the Nazi Party. During those years, since there was no international organization that could help those who were imprisoned in the concentration camps, measures were only taken after the end of World War II in 1945, when the Nuremberg trials were established and took place from 1945 to 1949. Although the Nuremberg trials were punishing those involved in the Nazi Party and marked the beginning of denazification, they were unable to eliminate the cultural hatred toward a certain group of people, like the Jewish population. The Holocaust and World War II were closely intertwined, as the Nazi regime used the conflict as a pretext to carry out its plans for the final solution. Adolf Hitler, leader of the Nazi Party, ordered the systematic extermination of the Jewish people based on a radical ideology. He spread the false belief that Jews were an inferior and dangerous race, and used this prejudice to justify mass murder and ensure the Nazi influence remained unchallenged. The Holocaust was not just about confining the Jewish population on concentration camps or extermination camps. It also meant that they had to work every day regardless of age, gender, or physical condition, endure constant insults and discriminations from the guards, and in some cases didn't have enough to eat. Direct violence consisted in beatings, shooting people in various parts of the body, killing them in gas chambers, and starving the Jews in concentration or extermination camps. Medical experimentation, most of them were on babies, death marches, and other things. Structural violence. It consisted in the Nuremberg laws, which declared that Jews have no rights in the Nazi land. They made the ghettos for the Jewish people and the Star of David so the Nazis could identify the Jewish populations, and made professional bans so Jews could not work on certain jobs. Cultural violence. Hatred toward the Jewish population and anyone who did not consider themselves a Nazi or was not German at all. Dehumanizing propaganda, such as saying Jewish people were subhuman. The creation of the International Military Tribunal, which consisted in the participation of Britain, USA, France, URSS, and China, who were the allies, created the Nuremberg trials, which were a series of legal proceedings to hold high-ranking Nazi officials for all the atrocities they made during the World War II. The Nuremberg trials were effective in dismantling the legal and political framework of the Nazi regime, leading to a mandatory process of denazification and complete the change in the government, but the trials could not immediately restore lives, homes, or families of the millions of the victims. The trials achieved a high level of general well-being by establishing the rule of law rather than resorting to summary executions or collective revenge, which helped prevent future violence. However, they also faced criticism because their actions were not brought to trial, the bombing of Hiroshima and Osaka in Japan. This meant that the decisions made by the court were not fair. Individual accountability. Leaders were tried and punished for the atrocities they committed. Direct violence ended, like physical aggression was eliminated once and for all after the war ended. Systemic denazification. The Nazi influence was removed from the government. Conflict resolution. When the military aggressions on a global scale was officially brought to an end, and the humanitarian aid, which was the emergency aid reached for the liberated survivors. And now the long-term effects, which consisted in the liberation of victims who had been trapped in the concentration and extermination camps, finally regained their freedom. Persistent discrimination. Even though the war ended, racial prejudices continued. Persistent resentment. Post-war tensions generated deep resentment toward the Jewish population. international human rights standards emerge to prevent future genocides, and the institutional memory global awareness prevents history from repeating itself. International organizations play an indispensable role in global governance, functioning as the primary frameworks for conflict resolution and the preservation of human rights through diplomatic and peaceful intervention. Although these organizations are not infallible and may sometimes struggle to achieve their goals, their primary objective remains on the conflict resolution. They play an essential role as mediators, with the mission of guiding the parties involved towards sustainable peace, ensuring that the outcomes address not only the immediate direct aggression, but also the deeply rooted structural and cultural causes of the conflict.